Alright, and welcome back. This is Raul. This time around we're going to be looking at a Doepfer module called the A131 VCA. This is the Exponential VCA, as you can see labeled clearly right there. There is another version of this module that is made that is called the Linear VCA. It's the Doepfer A130 Linear VCA. So as we go into this sort of little description in the beginning, we'll talk about what the difference between the 131 and the 130 is. I don't actually happen to have one of those, but I will talk about it because it's almost identical on the front face. So first we're going to talk about what a VCA is. Now, if you weren't with us last time when we discussed the A101-2 low-pass gate, which also acts as a VCA, then you might need a little bit of a description about what exactly a VCA is when we're talking about that. So that's what we're going to do. VCA stands for Voltage Controlled Amplifier, and as an amplifier, you probably are aware of when you bring the volume up on something, it brings the volume up, you can hear it louder. If you bring it down, then the volume gets quieter. So that's the idea of just a basic amplifier. Now, when you're talking about a voltage controlled amplifier, that means you can use, rather than your hand, you can use a voltage from something else like an LFO right here, or a voltage controlled LFO. These will come into our demonstration a little bit later to adjust whatever setting you have on the gain dial dynamically. So I could send a sine wave into CV1 and have it adjust the gain parameter that I have set on the dial. There is one additional CV input that you can see here, CV number 2. And the advantage of using CV number 2 is that you can actually control how much of the control voltage going into the A131 is going to modulate the gain setting that you have. Standard Doepfer convention, if you have signals feeding into both CV1 and CV2, they will be summed and then sent to the gain parameter. So in case you want to use both of these, then have at it. They will be summed and then sent to the gain parameter. Down here at the bottom, we have audio in number 1 and audio in number 2, so you can actually feed 2 audio signals into this, but both of them will then go into the amplifier and then fed out to the output here. Pretty standard adjusting here. You can adjust how much level is coming in from each signal and get your own little flavor of sound coming into this. And then your output dial is going to control how much of the signal is going out. So there you go. That's the basic description of this module. Fairly brief, but I think you'll agree there's not too much to talk about as far as inputs really being any different than in a lot of the other inputs that we've had on some of the other demonstrations that we've done in the past. Now I did mention the Doepfer A130 in the beginning, the linear version of this module. This module, the exponential version, is made so that when you adjust it, the settings, they're ideal for audio. So that's why there is an exponential version, which is the one we have here. But there's also the other version, the 130, which is a linear VCA, which is ideal for control voltage signals, which are sub-audio frequencies. So in an ideal system where you wanted to have the exact type of VCA for control voltage signals and the exact type of VCA for audio signals, you would have both. You would have an A130 to mix and modify your low frequency signals such as LFOs, envelopes, that kind of thing. But it does say in the manual that you can actually use the A131 for both. And interestingly enough, in the manual for the A130, which I took a look at as well, it says you can use the other one for that. It actually uses the wording more that the exponential can be used for audio and the linear for control voltage signals or sub-audio signals. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So I tested it out prior to this just to make sure that it would do what I wanted it to do, and it did actually, in fact, work that way. Now, one thing to note here, just so you're aware, that rule applies for fairly newer versions of the A131 and the A130. I'm not sure where the cutoff date is. If you're interested and you maybe have an older Doepfer A130 or 131 and you're not sure whether it can handle the signals adequately, you may want to contact Doepfer directly to find out if your module can handle that kind of signal. So, now that we got the description out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into a basic demonstration of a VCA. So we said that it's going to allow us to change the volume of our signal going up and then down. So first, let's hear the signal we're going to work with. I want to work with this LFO here. I'm going to put it in the high frequency range, so it is audio. And first, we're going to listen to it dry. So I'm going to take something with a fair deal of harmonics. I'm going to take a saw wave, and I'm going to patch it into the mixer. So here it comes. Ready? There it is. So that is our saw wave. Okay? So now we're going to take that saw wave, and we're going to feed it into our VCA. There we go. And I'm going to bring the gain all the way down, and then I'm going to take the audio out from here and patch it into our mixer, at which point we will not hear anything. Now, it being plugged in, the signal is going through there, but since I have the gain all the way down, I can't hear anything. As I start to bring the gain up, though, I'll start to hear it. There it is. So at this point, I can bring it down, I can bring it up, I can bring it down, I can bring it up. And that just lets me manually control the signal that's being fed into here. If I wanted to, I could also control the input going into here. And if you remember any of the other descriptions of the Doepfer modules, standard convention in Doepfer A100 modules is, if you go past the 2 o'clock point, you might be distorting your signal a little bit. So just something to be aware of, unless you like that sound. Some people do. So just something to be aware of. And that goes for your output down here as well. So we got our audio signal feeding into here. And now let's go ahead and change it. So I'm going to leave the gain down there. And then I'm going to take a low frequency signal from my A147 LFO. And I'm going to use just a basic sine wave. And I'm going to patch it into... I'm going to use CV number 2 because I want to be able to adjust how much modulation is coming in. There we go. And then I'm going to bring up CV2. And there we hear it coming up ever so slightly. And the more I bring up CV2, the more up and the more down it will adjust my signal. There we go. Pretty basic. Now, at this point, I can adjust how fast that's modulating my VCA by adjusting the frequency over here. There we go. Or I can also adjust the frequency of my oscillator here, get a different octave. Kind of like that. Okay. And that's just a basic patch to give you, what is referred to as a tremolo effect. So I'm going to turn the CV2 all the way up. Now at this point, we have a basic sort of tremolo type patch, modulating amplitude going on here. At this point, I could add another waveform into the mix if I wanted to. I could send, let's say, a triangle wave into here, and it'll then mix those two waveforms here. So we should hear our modulation slightly change. There we go. If I bring the frequency down, we should hear a slightly different flavor of modulation. Let's hear it without the sine wave. And then let's hear it with the sine wave. So it sustains a little bit longer. Now if I want to sort of vary that a little, I could actually bring down CV number 2. And there I'm getting closer to just my triangle wave. Okay, so that's pretty basic. Now if I want to, I can also go in and unpatch that and choose a different waveform. I could go and choose a saw wave, patch that, and I'm getting yet a different flavor of modulation going on there. I can adjust my frequency. So there we have two control voltage signals going into the two control voltage inputs of our VCA and then modulating it. So that's just your basic tremolo effect. Now I can also feed in a second audio signal, so if I want to sort of fatten this up, sound out a little bit, I can actually bring maybe a triangle wave into this module and add it into that. Now I have two waveforms being mixed at my VCA. So if I want to turn that first one down, I get essentially all of my triangle wave being modulated through the VCA. Or if I want to bring in a little bit of the saw wave, I can bring it in. There we go. So pretty basic patch here, pretty basic sound going into our VCA. And I can adjust the octave there, just the frequency of the modulation. I can adjust how much modulation is coming in CV2. If I want a much slower building sound, I can actually bring the frequency down even more. And get a sound like that. So it all depends on what kind of sound that you're going after for this. Okay, so there you go. That is the basic demonstration of just a regular tremolo type patch going into an A131 VCA. And I did promise that we were going to see what happens with feeding control voltage signals into here. So if you stay with us for the next section, we are going to be looking a little bit at that. And then we're going to see some more creative and exciting ways that you can use this module. Because right now we're just covering kind of sort of the fundamentals of this module. So you understand the idea behind it and what the basic idea of what it does for you. So thanks for watching, and please stay tuned for the next section.